16th October 2017. We enter a very complex week. Okay, there are a lot of things happening in the country. Above everything else, there's a lot of tension because nobody knows what's going to happen next. Okay, so what we're going to do in this recording, we're just going to try and analyze the situation politically so that we're in a better position to predict what is going to happen going forward. Okay, I know there are a lot of people who always come to this channel to listen to what is going to happen prophetically, what the men of God and the women of God are saying, okay, or have said in the past concerning what stage we're in and what's going to happen. Okay, so I'll also try and touch on that a bit. Now I'll repeat what I've said before about this stage in the history of our country, this very trying time, this crisis. I've said, do not fear. The only thing you should fear is fear itself. Okay, and I've said fear tends to paralyze somebody, that they stop thinking, they panic. That's the wrong thing to happen at this time to anybody. I know the circumstances is very difficult, but I urge you Kenyans to brace yourselves and keep your thinking caps on. It's very important. Okay, rather than have fear, think. Thinking will help you much better than fear. Okay, now most Kenyans agree that the quickest way of solving this problem is to have the two protagonists, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, sit down together, not their advisors, not their close people, not their deputy presidents or the running mates, just the two of them to sit down together and discuss this issue, with the interests of the country at heart and with the interest of maintaining peace in the country. Okay, that is really the only solution currently. Okay, so maybe a good place to start is to look at previous attempts to get these two to sit down together to talk to each other. Okay, and maybe from that analysis, not maybe, from that analysis, we will have a pretty good idea, of what each side is planning, what each side is thinking. Okay, because that's important. Before you go and try and solve a crisis, you need to know which side, what the end game for each side is. Naturally, they'll not tell you. Okay, it is normal in major political contests like this for people to play their most dangerous cards under the table, and that is exactly what is happening here. Okay, the whole idea is to keep your opponent guessing so that they have no idea what you're going to do next. Yes, so what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and take a peek at those cards, those dangerous cards under the table. Okay, I am also a bit privileged with some inside information that I managed to get. Okay, so we should be able to have a pretty good picture of what we are facing here. Okay, so let's get started. The truth is there's been no shortage of efforts to try and get the two people to sit down together and discuss. Okay, I will remind you of the time when the chairman of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, said he'd like to meet both candidates. Okay, now what happened in that particular case? Raila Odinga and his running mate Kalonzo Musyoka arrived at the IEBC. Okay, they inquired whether the president had arrived. They were told he hadn't. The truth is that Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka were there for only a short time. And the information I got is that they already had information that the president was not going to turn up, and therefore they just made an appearance for appearance's sake. Okay. Now we also had a tweet from Mutai Ngunyi. Yes, he does videos. He's a political analyst. He said that since Uhuru is the president, it is normal for Chebukati to go to Uhuru. It can never happen the other way, that Uhuru goes to Chebukati. That was his comment. Okay, and well, it turned out to be true because Uhuru did not turn up. Okay, a little later, in fact very late, we had the Jubilee crowd coming in. They said they had an important engagement in State House, and that is why they were late. Okay, so that meeting flopped. Now the latest effort was yesterday at the Norfolk Hotel, where a caucus of leaders allied to President Kenyatta actually called for a meeting between the two, for the two to speak. Yeah, those leaders were mostly election losers, people who had lost the last elections, like former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo. Okay, there was also Martha Karua, there was Kabando. Yeah, those are the characters who turned up for that, and they appealed to the president. They said, we have a crisis in our hands, and it's very important that the two talk. Yes, that the country is not in a mood, it's not in the kind of environment where an election can actually take place. Okay, that's the latest effort, and wait to see what happens as a result of that. Now, if you carefully examine the instances where a meeting would have taken place between the two but failed, you will notice one consistency, yeah, and that is the fact that Jubilee are much less interested in sitting down to talk than NASA are. Okay, now I'm going to tell you why. Yeah, the answer should be clear to most people, but this is really a political thing. Okay, but maybe it goes beyond politics. Yeah, you make up your mind after I tell you. Okay, and I'll do that immediately after this short break. Welcome back. Now, I've often been accused by Jubilee supporters of being one-sided, of never saying anything nice about Jubilee, of always being a NASA sycophant. Yes, that has always been a repeated criticism, which is okay, because if one is in the kind of business I am in, you've got to be able to have a thick skin, able to take criticism, because if you can't, then maybe you'd better look for something else to do. Okay. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out and make very clear before I answer that question is that we have had over the years a lot of political analysts in our country, okay? And there are a lot of analysts, because their hands are tied by media laws passed by politicians over the year to frustrate and limit the press. Yes, limit the press freedom, which is a constitutional right, yeah? And as a result of all this, we've had the typical analysis where you read, and at the end of it, at the end of taking in the analysis, you're more confused than when you started reading it. True story. Because in a lot of times, a lot of information will be thrown towards you, yeah, a lot of information, yes. And so what will happen is a lot of those things maybe you didn't know, so it just make you more confused than you are even before taking in the analysis. Okay. Now, I try to have a slightly different approach. What I do is that I analyze, and I will not beat about the bush. I'll just give you the facts as they are. Okay. Now, admittedly, one of the reasons why many analysts will not give you, will not nail down an analysis with a verdict for you, is because they fear to be wrong. Okay, they fear that tomorrow people turn around and say, hey, wait, your analysis was wrong. Okay, I don't think a person who fears to be wrong should be in this kind of business of analyzing politics. Okay, because politics is very unpredictable, yeah, and whatever analysis anybody gives can never be 100%, because anything can happen in politics, factors can change, etc., etc. Okay, so what I'll do here is attempt to say it as it is without any fear or favor. Now, let's start from what we know. We know that Jubilee have been telling us they won the election. Okay, that's fact number one. Fact number two, we know that despite the fact that Jubilee have told us they won the elections, they have not behaved like somebody who won the elections. Okay, and there's plenty of very clear evidence to prove this. Yeah, one that is coming out a lot from a lot of quarters, which is a fact, is their behavior is not consistent with somebody who won the elections. Now, the IEBC, yeah, were indicted by the Supreme Court as being the people who bungled the election we've just been through. Yeah. Now, if Jubilee won, then it stands to reason that they would be very upset about the IEBC, who messed up their victory. Yes, and therefore they would be the first, even before NASA gets there, to really shake up the IEBC and to make sure that enough changes are made to make sure that they don't bungle the next election. They've done the exact opposite. They've actually supported, they've protected the IEBC at every turn. In fact, they've been so strong in their support and protection of the IEBC, there's absolutely no doubt that they want that this IEBC, with the same secretariat, etc., to run the forthcoming repeat presidential election scheduled for 26. Fact number 3, based on just common sense, yeah, if you look around the country at the support base of Jubilee and you look at the support base of NASA, and you're honest and you're neutral, it is very obvious that NASA is the party that has more support countrywide. Okay, I'll just give you a very simple example. When the Supreme Court passed their verdict annulling the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta, do you remember how the celebration looked like? Yeah, spread right across the country. Did you see the numbers celebrating? Okay, now let's go back a bit. Let's look at the numbers that celebrated the win. Yeah, when Uhuru was declared the winner before the case went to the Supreme Court. Yeah, simple test. Okay, and therefore anybody looking at this situation, trying to analyze it, it should be rather obvious the side that has more support. In my view, this is where the crux of the problem is. Yeah, because put yourself in this situation. You have not won an election. Okay, that election has been bungled, or rather people stuffed votes on your behalf. Yes, and then the election was nullified. What would you do? In other words, you've been caught with your hands in the cookie jar. Yes, the Supreme Court has proved. Yes, because the Supreme Court does not make pronouncements, does not pass verdicts without something called evidence. Okay, so the Supreme Court has found evidence to prove that actually you did not win that election. What would you do? And let's assume you don't have the numbers. What would you do? When you ask yourself that question, then you understand completely how Jubilee are behaving. Okay, I would not want to go into a meeting to negotiate what? Yeah, because the minute I negotiate free, fair and credible elections, I'm out of the door. Okay, therefore the whole idea would be to do everything in my power to make sure there's no negotiation. Yeah, it's just human nature, and it's pure and it's simple, and this is politics at a very high level. Okay, you can't afford to make mistakes. Yeah, so let's conclude the question we started with. What's going to happen this week? Well, we know NASA are going to be demonstrating every week, every day of the week. Yes, and we know that the police have been violently clamping down on these demonstrations. Okay, that we know. What we don't know is what Jubilee's endgame is, what they plan, yeah, going forward. Because being in government means that you have responsibility of keeping an environment that is conducive to peace. Yes, the government has done everything, yeah, to ensure that the atmosphere is very tense, that there's so much tension within the country. Okay, now today I had a very interesting comment from somebody analyzing the situation, and they said that they fear. Okay, let me use the exact words. I fear because some people think they can raise tensions, they can create a certain situation, and falsely believe that when the time comes, they will be able to control it. But history shows us that normally when you start such kind of things, they spiral out of control. Yeah, that was what that person said. Now, at least I've been listening very carefully to Jubilee politicians and spokespeople after I got the inside information of what the game plan is here, okay? And it seemed to confirm perfectly what I'd been told. In fact, one very telling remark I heard from a Jubilee legislator was to the effect that, oh, Raila thinks this is 2007. This is not 2007. Yeah, things will not go his way. Wow. Another one said, we'll deal very firmly with the demonstrations. Okay? We'll deal very firmly. Then they realized what they had said and added later. Of course, we'll do it according to the law. Okay? Now that really sent chills down my spine. So when you put all this together, everything should be rather obvious what you should expect. Yeah, we should really expect the worst. We pray for the best, but expect the worst. That's the truth. Now, from a spiritual perspective, you remember the verse that a servant of God attached to this election. Yeah, I shall overturn, I shall overturn, I shall overturn. Yeah, until the person who is chosen comes. Yeah, that means that we're waiting for the second overturn, because we've already seen the first when the Supreme Court nullified the elections. So we wait to see where, the second one. Unfortunately, yeah, this overturn business is the kind of business that causes trouble. Okay, tensions, very high tensions in the country, etc., etc. So be very careful this week. Yes, your life is much more important than any presidential candidate winning these elections. It is much more important than anything else. Okay, so just stay safe. Yeah, but that is the situation. I've tried to present it as honest and as boldly as I could without causing any panic. Okay, and as I said from the beginning, yeah, the thing you should fear most is fear itself. Yeah, you should try your best not to fear. Okay, of course, if we don't end up with a chaotic week, I'll be the first person to be delighted and very happy about it. Okay, and I'll really celebrate at having been wrong. Yeah, that is really something I dream about happening. Yeah, that actually there's nothing which will happen, that actually tensions will go down by some miracles. These two protagonists will sit down and sort out the difference and find a solution for us as a country going forward. Okay, that would be the best thing ever that would happen. Okay, but let's just wait and see what happens. Until next time, this is Kshs.